Hi, everybody. It's Greg Johnson. I'm here with my wife. I was told that she was not my better half. She was my better two-thirds by the former governor of the great state of Utah, Gary Herbert. So thanks, Gary. Anyways, just recently he said that, and I have to admit she's probably right. He's probably right. So we're excited about being back with you for another edition of Building Bridges with Greg and Jill here on our Standing Together YouTube channel and all of our places on Apple iTunes and podcast, Spotify and all those things. So we always ask you very kindly, very respectfully, very humbly to like our page, to like our YouTube page, subscribe, even do the notification bell, and also a comment or two, because as comments are made, YouTube recognizes that and we get a little bit more status and get a little bit more exposure. So any help you can give to the Building Bridges with Greg and Jill podcast is much appreciated. You can check it out obviously on YouTube or any of the other basic places where you get your podcast. So check it out. And we're very, very grateful for that. And we are doing a special show today. It wasn't our plan. It was really last minute with regards to some very huge events that have taken place in our country, which all three of us are very, very humbly grateful for. And you would all know, as this is aired, that as of the last Friday of June, whatever that was, what day was it? June? It was the last Friday, whatever last Friday was. Somebody will figure that out in a second. The 24th? The 24th. There you go. June 24th will forever be a historic day in America, as the Supreme Court, in a 5-4 ruling, decided that really Roe v. Wade was not a constitutional right, even after almost 50 years of being enacted in our country. And so we've invited a very special guest to talk with us about that, talk with us about our reaction, our engagement within the larger community, and the ways that we can step up as human beings to do something more than just clap our hands and say, isn't that great? But maybe that we can do something about it and contribute and support and help. So we're going to talk to him in just a minute. But before I introduce him, I'm going to say, Jill, welcome to the Greg and Jill podcast.
Thank you.
My better two-thirds.
It's great to be here. I'm really excited about this conversation because it's very relevant for today, and we do need to know how to respond in a godly and a loving way, not a vitriolic way, but in a way that helps us to be more like Christ and to share that love with others.
Yeah. So we're going to engage with our friend George Stewart. George is the current director of the Pregnancy Care Center in Salt Lake City. They have a branch, kind of a satellite branch down in Utah County, and I believe we have 2 more PRCs in the state of Utah, one in the Ogden area, one in Park City?
There's actually 7.
7 total. We'll find out about that. George, you have been the director at the PRC here in Salt Lake for 2 years.
Yes.
Came to Utah around 2014, I think,
yes.
And been on the board a number of years, very passionate about this area, and have served in various capacities from the business community, your background in business, I think, or was it law?
It was both. I was a general counsel for a couple of global companies.
Okay. Well, welcome to the Greg and Jill podcast. You are a friend, you're a brother in Christ, and you care deeply about unborn children and the sanctity of human life. You run a staff of nurses and doctors and volunteers who help people who are facing crisis pregnancies. So I just want to give you a moment to introduce yourself beyond that and say hello to our audience,
sure.
and then we'll ask you a few questions.
Sure. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Thanks, Greg and Jill. We've been around. The Pregnancy Resource Center has been around for about 37 years in Salt Lake City, and we are a Christian-based 501c3 medical mission that just basically takes care of women who are facing unplanned pregnancies. We try to essentially find out what the pain points are, and what we essentially do is attempt to end the crisis, not the child. We give them other choices. We like to use that word choice. We all know what the other choice is. We give them other choices. We give them all the support they need for the first 9 months of the pregnancy and then the first year of the child's life. We see on average about 2,000 clients a year. We provide limited medical services, including limited obstetrical ultrasounds, prenatal nutrition, lactation consulting. We do about 5,000 referrals a year to other community entities. We can talk about that down the road in the podcast. And yeah, it's a wonderful place. We're staffed by a doctor and registered nurses, and we have a wonderful staff. I'd encourage anybody who's in the area to stop down, take a tour sometime, and learn about what we really do, not about what you may hear in the media
Right.
about who we are.
Right. Absolutely. And we're hearing, that's part of why we feel so important about doing this podcast, because we're hearing some dishonest things, some very blatantly dishonest things being said about the nationwide CareNet network of
Yes.
pregnancy resource centers. Jill, do you
Yeah.
have a question you want to start with?
Well, I was just reading in the news, this is what everybody's talking about, and a lot of people are saying, don't go to the crisis pregnancy centers
Sure.
because they're lying to you. They're
Yes.
telling you it's health care.
Yes.
It's not health care. Somebody even said abortion is health care.
Yes.
What is your response to that, and how do
Right.
you guys deal with the media
Yeah.
portraying you in that way?
Yes, so the typical moniker these days is we are a fake clinic and exist solely to pressure women into having their babies and then abandon them afterwards. Nothing could be further from the truth. As far as being fake, we are, as I said, staffed by medical professionals. We do offer medical care. We do medical referrals, and we are very clear on all of our information and with all of our clients that we do not perform or refer for abortion. It's not in our DNA. It's not what we're all about, but we don't trick anybody. We tell them this all up front. It's on our websites. It's on every piece of paper that we hand a client, and we're very clear up front. We do discuss abortion in our counseling. No fear tactics. We just give them medically accurate information about the procedure itself, given the gestational age that they're at, the child, and what the potential risks are. That's it. And so to label us a fake clinic is really disingenuous.
Yeah, there is a huge emphasis in our Christian community and faith. Our Bible, the Scripture, very much clearly talks about the widow and the orphan, taking care of the fatherless, serving and loving and protecting. There's a historical background to the Christian community, even in the days of ancient Rome,
Yes.
when Roman leaders who didn't want to have a girl, they would just have the birth, find out it's a girl, and take it down to the aqueduct and leave it there. And that was their form of a post-birth abortion, if you will, just basically to just die in that
Yes.
place. And what happened, which was a historically important motivational influence of the early Christians, was that Christians began to go there, secure these little babies, distribute them to families, care for them, love them, and let them live.
Yes.
And even the Romans, who despised Christians, they despised them, said, they're not all that bad because they do care for those unwanted babies. And so in today's society, we don't have aqueducts and we don't have live babies just left there. Sometimes that happens in trash cans and things like that, and very, very horrendous stories like that. But the Pregnancy Resource Center is really the hands and feet of Jesus in our time, to say to a woman who may have gotten pregnant in a awkward situation, didn't want to be pregnant, maybe not married, maybe raped, maybe all kinds of hard things, and there's someone to support them.
Yes.
The thing that you're hearing about pregnancy care centers, George, is that we're fake and that we're there to promote an agenda, and we're anti-abortion and we're just anti-women and we're da-da-da-da. But really the PRC and the CareNet network of churches, of PRCs across this country, I don't know how many there are,
2,700.
2,700 locations are there to say, how can we help you?
Yes. Yeah, maybe it might be helpful if I'd step you through how it all works. It could be a referral. The amazing thing is here in Utah, and this is very different than from back east where I came from. Last year we got 23 referrals from Planned Parenthood. And it could be the case where, obviously they charge for everything, and the woman can't afford the ultrasound. They'll send them to us. We had several cases last year where a young girl was about to take the so-called abortion pill, the first pill in that series. Something stopped her in her tracks. We know what it was, but and they would refer her to us. And what happens is the woman comes in. We take down her history. It's just like any other medical office. Then we sit down, and what we'll do is we'll try to find out, as I said before, what are the stumbling blocks? What are the pain points? Normally, on an average year, over 75% of women, the reason they give for seeking an abortion is a perceived lack of financial resources. That's usually the main pinch point.
Right.
It could be others, but we find out, do they have any kind of support structure? What are they facing? We'll do the pregnancy test afterwards. It's a medical grade pregnancy test. If it comes back positive, we'll begin what we call options counseling. This is where they hear about all their choices, not just the one. Not just the one. And again, we go through, we explain all of the resources that are available at the PRC and in the community at large. And we'll talk about the adoption option, as well as what we can do for them if they decide to carry the baby to term and parent it. And then they'll take a limited obstetrical ultrasound. We had a brand new machine donated to us last year after the banquet that does very early scans. It's an amazing piece of equipment. When they see that little heart beating, when they see that it's not just some clump of cells, as the other side likes to call it, but there's actually a beating heart and a tiny little body, about 90% of these women will choose to carry that baby, either to keep it or for adoption, and we help them through the entire process. If they decide to keep it, we have 200 parenting classes that are available. Wow. We run them through. These are all very practical in nature. We do lactation consulting, prenatal nutrition. We provide everything they could possibly need during that pregnancy in the first year of the child's life. And like I said, we do other referrals as well. We set them up with WIC, with Medicaid, with their OBGYN. We have great partnerships downtown. So it is a holistic approach, and we don't abandon them afterwards. We hook them up with other support groups. We run a support group. We also do fatherhood mentoring, post-abortion counseling. We are all about the women. There is no pressure, no judgment. What we try to do is simply shine Christ's love on these women. And when they hear this, when they sense that this is out of love, not ego, not argument, not rationality or logic, but love, that's what works.
Yeah.
This is
beautiful.
So different than what you see on the media.
Oh,
And it just is this
Yes.
great reminder
Yes.
to me even to not believe the things that we're seeing, to not believe the things that we're reading, but to come to people like you that are actually
Yes.
doing the work to find out
Yes.
what really is happening.
Yeah. What you're hearing on the media is, well, not to put too fine a point on it, it's a lie straight from the enemy.
Yeah.
Even within our senators, Senator Elizabeth Warren said yesterday, lawmakers must crack down on crisis pregnancy centers that masquerade as legitimate providers in a post-Roe era.
Yes. We expect a full-on assault. We're having to guard our facility now. One type of assault is violence, physical violence. We were contacted by certain federal authorities last week to advise us that they're hearing very serious chatter. Since then, we've taken reasonable and prudent security measures to keep our staff and clients safe. We're in touch with federal, state, and local authorities. And I never thought I'd live to see the day when Roe was overturned, and I never thought I'd live to see the day when I'd have to harden up a pregnancy care center with former law enforcement officers.
It's remarkable because within the spectrum of the faith community, and there are multiple faith groups, many of which are pro-life.
Yes.
The Islamic faith is strongly pro-life.
Yes.
Now there are examples of people of all faith, I'm sure, that have abortions, but in many ways the Christian faith is not the only faith that believes in and affirms the importance and dignity of an unborn child. And as that child develops, and grows closer and closer to its birth, the technology we have now that shows us what this baby looks like, it has 2 hands, it has 2 feet, it has arms and legs, it has a head. I mean, we have the joy of learning just late March that our daughter is pregnant with our first grandchild.
That's great.
And we have been studying things like we never did, even as parents with children, with the apps and stuff. And
it's really cool.
This is where the baby's at now, and this is what it looks like, and this is what's developing. And I'm telling you, George, within weeks, 4, 5, 6 weeks, that's not a glob of tissue.
No.
That is a body being formed by the master creator.
Yeah.
So the religious community believes in the dignity of human life, responded back 50 years ago when Roe v. Wade became the law of the land in a very controversial moment. I mean, many law scholars, very liberal law scholars, do not believe Roe v. Wade was ever good law.
I remember laughing about it in constitutional law 35 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the former very liberal judge who passed away at the end of the Trump administration, she herself declared Roe v. Wade bad law.
Everyone knows it was bad law.
Yeah, there's no constitutional statement about the sanctity of human life or birth in our Constitution, and so that is sent, according to the 10th Amendment, to the matters of the state. And so here we were deprived that. And my whole point of saying that is that the Christian community has a deep care, and we concern ourselves about things like life and death and the sanctity of human life and the unborn. And so we reached out, we began to form these PRCs, these pregnancy resource centers across America to care for, and across the world, frankly. And all you hear is that we only care about the unborn. We don't care about the woman. We don't care about the child afterwards.
Right.
And I'll even hear, and it hurts my heart a little bit because I hear this from kind of progressive Christians or more liberal Christians, like, we don't really care about we just care about the unborn. We don't care about poverty. We don't care about broken homes. We don't care about, and I just think it's not true.
No, it's not.
The amount of resources from diapers to baby food to learning and classes that you guys do, it's truly beautiful. It's a beautiful thing.
It's the most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah. And you've
really
made probably more money in days gone by.
Yeah, I'm not in it for the money, I can promise you that. I mean,
work for the Lord, the pay isn't much, but the benefits are out of this world.
Outstanding. Yeah.
It is true that there are people that are maybe just calling themselves Christians, or and perhaps they are genuinely Christians, that their voice is very loud, pro-life, but when you look into their life, they're actually not doing anything like what we're talking about, what you're doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's where the rub is here, is that they hear these people yelling about it, fighting for it, and now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, those particular people are very vitriolic about this. So we need to turn that. And so I wonder, George, if you would speak to what can we do as Christians that are maybe don't have time to volunteer for the PRC, that we can live our faith truly and love the baby, the woman, the man, the family.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, of course, as a Christian, the first thing that I would ask people to do is to pray about this issue, to pray for these women who, once the trigger law goes into effect, we can talk about that later, these women who have nowhere else to go, okay, that they be able to find us, and that we will have the sufficient resources in order to be able to help them, okay? That's the first and most important thing. I need prayer cover for this ministry.
That's something we can all do.
You can all do that. You don't have to have money to do that. You don't have to have a whole bunch of time to do that, okay? And that's what we should all be doing.
Yeah.
And pray for your neighbors who are on the other side of this issue. The divisions in this country at this point, I'm kind of a history geek. I mean, we've been torn apart before. For example, I remember the late 60s, early 70s, and the Vietnam War and the rest of it. But I don't think we've ever been quite this polarized on so many issues, really, since the 1850s. It is a pivotal moment in our country's history, and our enemies are watching. We don't need to be vitriolic if they are. We need to return to them with love, and we need to pray for them. Okay, a lot of people have been brainwashed over the past decades on this issue. They don't know really what, for example, what we do. All they hear is what they're being told on the media, for example. So that's important. The other thing you can do, please give. We are expecting a real significant uptick in clients given the trigger law. We watched what happened in Texas when they passed the fetal heartbeat statute down there. Pregnancy resource centers were inundated with clients, and not just the normal clients, angry clients, confused clients. Okay? We need more financial support at this point than we've ever needed in our history. And the church body here in the Valley must step up. If you profess to be for life, this is your opportunity to step up in a significant way. We need child care. Yeah. That's another major pain point for these clients of ours. If they're going to college and they're suddenly pregnant and there's no child care available, what do you think they're going to do? So you can advocate for child care at your local universities. We need maternity homes. I am putting people up in hotels to get them away from traffickers and from abusers. We are paying for that. Where does that money come from? Individuals. There's not enough shelters in Utah to handle this. All of these things, support adoption agencies. You don't even have to give to us. Just support other things that would help us. Yeah.
No, it's remarkable, and I want to speak to you as our audience and our friends who watch our podcast and believe in being the kind of individual that builds a bridge and not builds a wall. We are for dialogue at every front. We talk a lot about on this program dialogue between Latter-day Saints and evangelicals, and we talk about other aspects of dialogue. And in our society right now, there is a deep burden, a deep tear, a deep rip, a deep hurt. We who have been pro-life and praying for that day when Roe v. Wade might be turned over and brought back to the states, and then we could legislate at the local level and care and do what we could to defend the sanctity of human life, are one side of a very divisive issue. And George just referred to the fact that there are many pro-abortion people, and you might be, for whatever reason, watching this program because you're so mad at Christians or you're so mad at pregnancy care centers, people like George, people like us, because we dare to tell you can't have an abortion. We dare to suggest it's wrong, that a woman's body should be her own body and she shouldn't have to explain anything to anyone. But George, is it true? America, prior to Roe v. Wade being overturned, was one of 7 nations that basically allowed in the world, like North Korea, China, America, and about 4 others, that allowed abortions basically almost to the very end of the pregnancy.
We're in the top 4 next to China and North Korea and Russia. That's not a good place to be.
I mean, Europe has long banned abortions after a certain period of time.
Yes.
And our own Roe v. Wade said that it really should be banned after the first trimester. Yes. But that has long been not followed, shall we be honest?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct.
So my heart to you guys and whoever is watching is, this is not a moment for the Christian community, as Jill, you just said, to dance in the streets and brag and boast and put it in your face and ha, 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 No, people that we don't agree with, who don't agree with us and are very angry about this, need to know, I'm sorry that you feel that way, but we love you. We're here to help, and we're just going to keep on doing that. And what, George, you just said, if financial resources, prayer resources, serving, volunteering, helping distribute clothing or food or whatever, anything that we can do really shows us that our actions are there. I think that I know we can always do more, but I think there's much that has been and is being done by the PRC network across America. So I think it's very disingenuous when people say, oh, Christians only care about the unborn, they don't care about the poor child, the inner city child, the African-American child. No, we do care. We do care desperately.
We do.
George,
Yeah.
what is the best way to respond to somebody that has been misinformed and maybe have high emotions? They're
Yes.
angry about what's happening here.
Well, one of the ways I've found that's very helpful is to actually do your own due diligence, okay? You can listen to what other people say or tell you, but why don't you do your own research? Come down, go to whatever PRC is near you. There's a whole bunch all over the place. Go in and see for yourself what they do.
Yeah.
Just go in and see what the vibe is. Does it seem like a fake clinic? Does it seem like people are getting hit over the head with Bibles and judged? Is there pressure being applied? Go in and see for yourself.
It has been a beautiful thing as I've been looking on the internet to see some of those stories
Yes.
where women are saying, I was in a crisis situation and this is how they helped me.
That's another way you can do part of your due diligence. Look at the reviews that we get. Now, of course, you'll see a couple here and there where they're swearing at us and calling us names, but if you look at any of the reviews from our previous clients, you'll get the truth. These people have been through the crisis. We carried them through, and they're so happy that they did that. And I'm telling you, the abortion option is not as easy as they would have you believe. We see women in our post-abortion counseling sessions that had abortions even 20 years ago. And they never had closure. They're still hurting. They still carry grief, shame, whatever it is. And we have to carry them through that as well. It is not an easy option.
Yeah. You know, I want to make sure, because again, I want you, our audience, whoever you may be watching this podcast, in light of the Roe v. Wade decision on the 24th of June being overturned and the magnanimous, the huge, the incredible reality that is to our country, and yet what it brings is a lot of division. You're not just an organization that serves fellow like-minded Christians only, right? Who do you
last
serve?
year we saw Muslims, we saw Jewish folks, we saw 2 Wiccan witches.
Wow.
About 17% of our clients on average in any given year are LDS. We don't care what they believe in. We don't care what their background is, a socioeconomic background. I don't care if they're black, yellow, green, red, whatever. We see them all.
Yeah.
And they're all treated the same way with love.
Yeah. Well, there's an old song. I think we sang it to our kids. I know a lot of Christian parents do. And Jesus loves the little children,
Yes.
all the children of the world, red and yellow, black and white. They are all precious in his sight.
They are.
And I think, again, for those that have this misguided, and I believe firmly that it is a misguided, dishonest assessment of pregnancy care centers and the Christian community that is committed to loving unborn children and loving born children and caring for them and caring for their mothers, caring for their dads, being a part of that process, not just a week after the pregnancy, but as long as they need help and whatever way they need help. And we need more dollars. We need more volunteers. We need to step up because, like you said, and maybe you could relay that, in Texas, the avalanche of people after this 15-week heartbeat law was enacted. It's like these people had no place to go, and so they found out about the PRC happily or unhappily and just overwhelmed the system, did they not?
They did, but one of the good things about Texas and other states that have these kinds of laws in place or trigger laws that will be in place, they already began even years ago to start funding their local PRCs on a state level, either through the grant process or direct giving from the state. I encourage anyone who's listening to encourage that kind of law here in Utah. That we have basically banned abortions, but not provided, let's say, support for the women who are not going to be able to travel to any of these abortion havens. What is going to happen to those women? I'll tell you what's going to happen. They're going to try for these at-home abortions. They're going to try to get the abortion pill online. We've had 14-year-olds being able to order these things online. They're not safe and effective, as you've been led to believe. And so, again, We are going to be facing a significant increase in clients, and frankly, we are not ready for it as your local pregnancy resource center, and the state itself is not ready for this either, our community.
George, tell us where are the PRCs in the state of Utah?
All right, so there's one up in Logan. They're not medical. There's one in Ogden that is medical. There's one in Park City that's medical. There's us in Salt Lake and in American Fork. They're both medical. There's a tiny little one in Moab that we're probably going to be sending our old ultrasound machine to. And then there's one all the way down in St. George, and they've just gone medical.
Okay.
When you say that they're medical, does that mean they have a certified nurse?
Yes, that means
there?
They're staffed by a doctor who checks the scans, a nurse who performs the ultrasound scans, and does any other of the medical services. Yeah.
And is that is it 24/7? Or do you have certain hours that you're open?
I wish it were. No. We our late night right now in Salt Lake it's Monday. We're open till 8 o'clock, 9 in the morning till 8. Normally we're open about 9 to 5. We're currently scheduling out about a week and a half to 2 weeks, which is not ideal. We do try to make room for emergency cases or walk-ins or people who come in from the, let's say, Planned Parenthood. If we had more nurses, more staff, again, we could open more hours, we could handle more people. I'm pleading with the community here in Utah to step up and support their local PRCs. It's really, now's the time to take a stand.
What role do the churches play in all this? Are they able to come around as a community and help some of these women and men in a crisis situation?
Yes. As far as support goes, we are supported by a number of churches. There are a great number of churches that either don't know about us or for whatever reason, perhaps they think it's a political hot potato, they won't work with us. I will say, and this was surprising to me, I ran the figures from our last fiscal year, and out of all the revenue that we received from all sources, only 5% came from the local church body. And that's not the way it is back east in most cases. I was really rather shocked to see that.
What would you say the percentages are back east?
Oh, for the PRC that we were at, it was at least 30%, at least. And so you still have to run fundraisers and everything, but the church body as a whole seems to be a lot more supportive. And I don't know why that is out here. But I would encourage anyone who is a pastor who's listening to this, or people who belong to church, talk to your pastor. If they're not giving, why is that? Now is the time for the body of Christ to step up and support life. Don't just talk about it.
Right.
Take action and bear fruit.
Yeah. The writer of the book of James, who we believe was the half-brother of Jesus, said, don't practice your religion in word only,
yes,
but also in deeds. And
yes,
so we've really been an advocate for that on this podcast, that, so far we have talked about what the PRC does, how it does it, who it's available for, what the mission of it is, how you can serve and be involved. I want to kind of maybe just not tell a story, but ask you to respond to a story that you brought right here to Utah, the story of Abby Johnson last year at your banquet where you raised funds, and we were there. She was a marvelous communicator, marvelous speaker. As a college student, and they made a movie about her life. It's called
Unplanned,
i.e. an unplanned pregnancy. She was a college student, I think, in Texas.
She was actually she was a director of a Planned Parenthood office in Texas.
Right.
And at one point was asked to assist in a late-term ultrasound-guided abortion. And I won't go into all the details. You can look it up yourself. But what she saw changed her life. And so now her own ministry is to take people out of the abortion industry. It's truly a horrific thing that happens.
And yet, as a uninformed young college student at a college fair, if you will, where the different clubs and different associations are promoted at the beginning of a school year, she learned about Planned Parenthood, thought it was a wonderful organization to help women, help women and babies, and started volunteering, and it ended up being a career for her. And until she actually saw what her organization was doing, because she was not in the abortion room as a center director or as an assistant center director. She didn't do that portion. But in that dramatic moment, she is a woman with lots of personality. She is amazing, funny, but very deeply passionate about this. And I think, again, it's folks, we have to all acknowledge that there's a certain amount of ignorance in all of us. And maybe you were raised in a family where just being pro-abortion was the norm, and you don't see anything wrong with it, and you're like, it's what women need, it's what women want. And you hear somebody from the pro-life side saying, no, it's the taking of an innocent life, and you just turn it into a political debate, and that's what you do, just argue on the college campus, or you argue in your workspace. And now it's just an argument, it's a political debate. We got to step back from that rhetoric. We got to build a bridge and not a wall. We're all in this together. If you don't believe that women should be required to have babies, or after they get pregnant, then ask yourself, why do I get so angry? Why am I so mad? Why do I feel this right has been taken away, and why do I want to storm the Capitol or whatever? Maybe it's time to reflect a little bit and say, what is it that I'm angry about? Why do I think this is a wrong thing? You can't go wrong in seeing that movie, Unplanned. It's available, I'm sure, in many places, but it's an incredible film that tells the incredible story of a woman who believed in abortion, who believed in practicing abortion, who facilitated, in her words, thousands of abortions in her career. Yes. And now she is fighting for every unborn child and for every mother in a crisis pregnancy and father. So I just want to ask you to think it through. And, if you want to be mad at me, if you want to say some ugly things and yell back at us through the comment section, we're not going to erase them unless you're profane. We do erase profane things. Or we block them or whatever we're supposed to do. Anyways, we just want you to know that this is a conversation worth having.
It is.
It's very important. It's not politics. It's not Republican versus Democrat. It is this seed of life going to be and is a human being? We protect eagles in the eggs. We protect various animals, and yet we've been allowing ourselves to just take innocent unborn humans for 50 years.
Yes, it's 63 million and counting.
63 million. Say that again. 63
million lives. How many artists? How many mathematicians, scientists, inventors did we lose? In those 63 million.
I've heard that, but I just want to say, how many just wonderful people?
Yes.
How many hurting people? How many people? Every person is precious in God's sight, not just the artists and the scientists and the guys that discover the cure for cancer, which we may have eliminated that person.
Yep.
George, is there any truth to what I've heard about the history of abortion? Mm-hmm. Is that one of the main reasons for it to start was to go into the black communities and eliminate African American babies?
The founder of Planned Parenthood, her name was Margaret Sanger. Back in the 20s, especially in Europe and Germany, the eugenics movement was huge.
Real thing.
It was a real thing. And you can look up for yourself, folks, what she wrote, what she believed in. And yes, in fact, Planned Parenthood was designed specifically to remove undesirables from our population. The black race, people who might be mentally challenged or physically deformed. Yes, look it up yourself. This isn't some conspiracy theory. Margaret Sanger, Sanger.
So at its core, it is a racist practice.
It began that way, and if you look at the statistics of where most abortions are performed and where most of their clinics are located, I think you can draw your own conclusions.
Is there a way to take this to, or maybe just give me some insight on how can we make this not a political discussion?
It's hard. It's very difficult, just given the polarization right now. I can say we're apolitical, but you really all you have to do really is come down to the center or look at our website to get a feel for how we operate. I don't lobby. We're not. There are other groups that take the lead on all that. All we do, the only reason we exist, is to serve women and their partners and these little ones. That's it.
George, was there something key in your own life that really gave you a heart for this?
I would say we had a hard time having children in the beginning when we first married. It took many years. Won't get into all the details, but eventually we were able to have some. But we were starting to go down the adoption route. And then the key event really was after I moved back from Europe. I was stationed in Europe doing some stuff, and I went to a friend of mine who I respected very much. He invited me to one of these banquets, one of these PRC. I didn't even know what a PRC was. I didn't know what it stood for, but I figured, okay, I'll go. And I got to tell you, I was so moved by what I heard and what I saw there that I decided, this is a worthy cause, and I thought, I really should go in and see them. So I went in, and I introduced myself to the director, wonderful woman. And she said, okay, so what do you do? And I said, I'm a lawyer. And she started laughing. And I thought, okay, here come the lawyer jokes. But what she said was, oh, George, we've been waiting for you. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, we had a lawyer on the board for years, but he's retiring and moving down south. And we've been having a really hard time finding a lawyer to replace him, so we were praying about it just before the banquet and praying that some lawyer would step up at this bank. So yeah, we've been waiting. And she treated it, matter-of-factly, and I remember to this day getting a chill down my spine.
Yeah.
Because that was the first time I'd ever experienced how God's hand moves in these centers. He really loves these little ones. He really does.
That's powerful.
It is. We have dear friends who have served in pregnancy care centers. I've had the privilege of being on the board in the Ogden PRC, the Utah County PRC. Cindy Hopkins, our old friend from Washington, D.C., Virginia area, she was involved nationally with CareNet. CareNet is a national organization that resources all these centers and does training for their leadership and all that, has a national conference. So, as we've talked about this, and we've kind of tried to, even just more recently in the episode, try to steer us away from this being purely political, right versus left, blue versus red, right. D versus R, and really think about what's there. And I'm telling you, George, is it not true that in this generation, right now, in 2022, more younger people are a part of the pro-life movement than we have seen in the last 50 years.
It's extremely
And technology has been the vehicle for them to believe that what is seen in that womb is not a blob of tissue, but a very carefully little designed baby body.
Yes.
Is that true?
It is true, and it's one of the most encouraging facts that still leaves me hopeful for my kids and my grandkids and their generation. Yes, it is true.
Yeah, and we saw them in front of the Supreme Court. Of course, last Friday there were those that were
Students
angry and
life.
shouting, but these Students for Life were there. And
Yes.
we have very clearly said here as bridge builders that this is not the time to point your finger in the face of pro-choice people or pro-abortion people and say, ha, 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 we finally won. No, this is pray for them. Build a relationship with them, have conversations with them, ask them what's made them so angry, share your view, let them share their view, have a conversation because it's a conversation worth having. And when we do this, we have found over and over again, if you just hate somebody and throw sticks at them, there's no change that's coming in that relationship. But even if you hate somebody or you hate their opinion and you sit down with them, you find out, hey, there's some decency in this person. You might be pro-choice and go, I hate pro-life people. Well, maybe if you met some, you'd say, well, I disagree with them, but they're decent people. They're good people. They mean well, and vice versa. You don't have to say that anybody who believes in abortion is an evil monster. You could just say, I disagree with them. I think it's really important, but this person is a fellow human being. It's someone we respect and someone we appreciate and help out and serve and love. That's kind of the deal there. I think, George, if I'm not mistaken, through Focus on the Family, last year or maybe before COVID, I don't know, they have been hosting public events of ultrasounds, literally in Times Square in New York and various other locations, where they do an ultrasound, put it on the master screen for all the passerbys to see, and it's a presentation, it's a celebration.
We're considering doing that at American Fork Steel Days this year. We have one of our staff members is pregnant. We have the machine down there that's somewhat portable. We're still thinking about it, but that's very powerful.
Yeah, it's hard. Again, Jill and I being grandparents soon to be, and right now, because our little granddaughter is in the womb, shall we say, and we believe that she is a real human being even now, and we're looking forward to meeting her and getting to know her in life. But it's this. There's this app. George, it's the most amazing app. You guys don't have to do it if you want, but it's the app that you literally can see a three-dimensional baby at that stage of development, week to week to week, from beginning to end, from the sperm hitting the egg right down to the birth moment. And you see the body's formation, the technical things, the heartbeat starting, the lungs, the skin, the hair, the eyelids, the fingers, all of it. And if you're not convinced, look at one of those apps.
And that goes a long way to prove the lie that it's a blob of cells, but it's another important thing. And we should hit this subject. One of the biggest arguments that we hear now is, hands off my body. I have bodily autonomy. This is my body, my choice. But I'm sorry, but the body inside your body is not your body. Okay,
right.
This body inside you, yes, it's connected to you, but it has its own unique set of DNA, its own brain, its own heart. This is not your body. You're carrying it. You should be caring for it, but I'm sorry, it's not your body.
It's not your
that's
body.
not really factual.
That's not factual.
I think the principles that we've been talking about over all of our podcasts, really, of this dialogue is so important here, because if I run across a woman that says it's my choice, it's my body, it's an understandable thing, because maybe she has a career and this would mess with her career, or she doesn't have the money to care for the child. And I would just say to you and our audience, let's use these dialogue skills that we've been talking about.
Yes.
Let's learn somebody's story and sit down and understand what their needs are, and be able to respond to them in a way that they feel loved and cared for, and not in a way that they feel like I'm being judged.
Right.
And our churches should be places that women in a crisis pregnancy feel comfortable coming.
Of course.
And feel that they will be loved and cared for, and not judged and not screamed at.
Yes, and 4 out of 10 women sitting in those pews have experienced an abortion. So when pastors talk about it, just remember that fact and be especially sensitive.
Yeah.
Well, I've even heard of Bible studies that are for if you've had an abortion, that women will go through these Bible studies and really experience some healing through that.
Support groups and various. And
that's what we do.
Yeah, it's kind of, I think it's referred to as post-abortion counseling or post-abortion support.
Yes.
Yeah,
we run a beautiful program. Yeah.
Well, I know we're kind of wrapping up again. Our heart hasn't been to go alt-right on this. We obviously have really focused on how do we now respond to the increased need of women who can't travel, who don't have a job, where a company will fly them to abortion. We don't support that. We don't want that anyways. And we do think that there are these wonderful places in America and right here in Utah where a PRC, a pregnancy resource center, is available to you. You don't know where to go. You don't know what to do. Maybe your family's not supportive of you. Maybe your finances are terrible. Maybe your boyfriend has abandoned you. Whatever the case may be, you may be in the worst position you can even imagine. But I'm telling you, an Uber ride away or a bus ride away, a knock on the door at the PRC, and they'll pay for the Uber ride, okay? Did you hear that?
Come see us. We will love on you with no judgment, and we will take care of you. We will end the crisis.
You don't have to be a Christian. You don't have to become a Christian. You can just be cared for by genuine people who just want to love you. And that's the invitation that we're asking. And for those of you that want to make this a political debate and you want to argue back and forth, again, we're willing to have that conversation. I'm willing to have that conversation. Jill is, George is, but we don't want you to think that this is just about a political right versus left thing. Our country's too divided, and we need those of you who are pro-choice to be the ones who lead out and say, hey, I'll have that conversation. And we need those of you who are pro-life to say, hey, I'm not going to, slam you or yell at you or anything like that. I just want to have a conversation with you. And let's just see what that does. We need it. We need that. Remember when our country was attacked by an external enemy in 2001, our nation was more united and had greater solidarity because our towers were destroyed and thousands of people in the Pentagon and in New York and in Pennsylvania were killed by these radicals, these militants. And we came together as a nation. It was one of the most beautiful times in our country's history for any of us that were alive back then. And while this is a painful time for some people, I really believe, George, that your best days ahead as the director of the Prcs in Salt Lake City, and everyone that does that, and everybody that's serving and caring, and everyone that can give and support are ahead of us because, the attitudes are changing. Yes, state legislatures and the people's vote are going to determine these things in a brand new way, in a way that's more constitutional in every way that I can understand. And some states will have very liberal abortion laws, and some will have no abortions at all. And you obviously can live where you want to live, and you can go where you want to go. But just know this, that there is a place.
Yes.
There are places.
Well, no matter what happens, we will be here. We've been here for 37 years. That place will be there long after I'm gone. Come down and see us sometime.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say one thing, and Jill knows this. My mom, back in 1965, got pregnant with an unplanned pregnancy. Things were not good for her. She had a 10-year-old daughter, a 5-year-old son, and a 4-year-old son, and was just recently divorced and left on her own. She didn't have but a 10th grade education from Ohio, was living in California. The last thing in the world she needed was to get pregnant from a man that was just a boyfriend. But that's what happened, and that's my story. My mom and my dad were never married. They never did get married. I got to meet my dad later in life, and that was a wonderful story. But at that time, this was the worst thing that could happen to my mom. In fact, she had major medical problems during that same time, and it just seemed like there's no way. And long before there was a PRC and long before that movement existed in 1966, somehow, some way, with her fortitude and her belief system, even though she was not a person of faith, she just had grown up in a world and in America where you didn't have an abortion. And she just thought that was the way, that was not an option that she would consider. So she had me, she gave me life. I lived in a very impoverished situation in Southern California. My brothers, my sister, we were oftentimes left in the terrible care of babysitters who were rather rough on us and did bad things to us. And just, my mom was a survivalist. And I'm sad to say that she basically had to survive and didn't have the resources of a PRC to love on her and provide resources and, diapers and food and medicine and all the stuff that the PRCs do. But spoken from a person who knows that story, and my 86-year-old mom who's still alive living in Boise, I thank God for her courage. I thank God for her strength. I thank God for her determination to give me life and the privilege that I have now to be married to my wife and the 4 children that we have and the children that now are going to come from them. And it's life. It's beautiful. It's awesome. And that's what we're talking about. Talking about your children and your children's children, and we're talking about fellow Americans, and we're talking about the future, the hope of our nation. Let's come together over life. Let's not keep hating each other over whether or not this ideology or that ideology is right. Let's be bigger than that. Let's be better than that. So I don't know if either of you have a final comment. That's my final word. I'll give you a final comment.
Time to take a stand, Utah.
Yeah.
Stand with us, stand in the gap with us, help these women. Thank you.
I think there are plenty of things that cause division. We should let this be something that unifies us.
This shouldn't. It's a very simple proposition.
Yeah.
Support these women in crisis. End the crisis, not the child.
Yeah. Yeah. What a beautiful statement there. There are so many You've mentioned it. We know it. So many parents who struggle with fertility issues that long to raise a child. That's not the need. I'm so grateful. I will say this as we wrap up. I am so grateful that we have a first lady here in Utah. Her name is Abby Cox, and she is a proponent of and has a commitment to, in her role as our Utah's first lady, to help the disadvantaged child, the unborn, the foster child, and the orphan. And she said to a group of pastors recently, right here in our state of Utah, that she wants to be the first state in the nation where there's a waiting list for parents to care for children, as opposed to children waiting for an adoptive parent or a foster child. And so as the need grows and as the views on abortion have changed and are changing to greater and greater views on life, that means we're going to have more things to do, more people to care for, more people to love, more people to serve. And we can do it. We can do it.
More opportunity for us as Christians or people of faith to bear fruit, as we put it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And we do it out of love.
Yes.
We do it out of love because we have felt the love of God, and we want to express it to others. And we want to care for you as a woman in crisis pregnancy. We want to care for you as a father. It takes two to make a baby, and we care about dads and moms, and we care about the baby. And I think it's the opportunity, and I want to believe that maybe in some powerful way, the orchestration of God Himself orchestrating this moment and this time is a gift to our country. I really think that, and again, I know some of you don't agree with that, but we do. We think that there's been a great gift given to us by the Supreme Court, and now we can stand up for life and do it at a state-by-state level, and we'll see where that goes. And we know the battle is not over,
no,
and the work is not done.
Far from it.
Yeah. So, anyways, Jill, I'm ready to say goodnight, goodbye, or whatever. It's not nighttime.
Thanks very much, Greg and Jill.
This has been a great discussion. Thank you, George, for
you're
coming.
welcome.
Yeah.
My pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks for checking out the Building Bridges with Greg and Jill podcast for the month of July. We're so grateful. We're celebrating some wonderful days in American history right now. It feels kind of like when the Berlin Wall came down and democracy advanced and communism I know it still exists, but it was just an amazing time back in the late 80s, and it's an amazing time in the early 2020s. So we're going to just celebrate that, and we're going to be thankful for it. And we're going to love those people who disagree with us. So anyways, check us out every month at the first Tuesday of the month. And subscribe, notification bell, and make a comment. We will be grateful for it. So we'll see you next time on Building Bridges with Greg and Jill.
Thank you.